A tough former soldier walked past a mom asking for help on the street one morning. Used to dealing with hard times, he didn't stop to listen and kept going. But then something clicked in his mind and his face went white. He knew who she was, and he couldn't believe he had just walked past her. Dan was completely stopped in his tracks. He turned around but saw that he was already too late. The mother and her 2 children had already disappeared. It was clear that they had recognized him as well, and a lot quicker. A lot of what he assumed to be their items were still left there. And the more he looked at it, the more he realized that this woman and her children were living on the street here. Dan's mind started going back to all those years ago, the moment that he had first seen this woman. He had still been with the military and was sent out on a mission to Iran. He still thought back to the meeting on occasion after the mission. Dan doubted if his eyes had not just deceived him. Why would he encounter her here again, all the way in the States? Dan looked around the street and saw that there were a couple more homeless people sitting around. He decided to go past them and ask if they had seen this woman and her children before. The woman and her children had only gotten to this street a couple of days ago, but by the looks of things, they had been on the street for a while. One homeless man explained this to Dan. The state does not care about homeless people, but they do care about homeless children. And when they find them, they will just take the children away from their parents, who in their eyes can't take care of the children, and put them in foster care. A nightmare for every parent, even those on the street. He thanked the homeless man and quickly went there. Here he was going to start his mission to find and reconnect with the woman and her children. He anticipated that they were not easy to find, and so he had to come up with a good plan. And so Dan started by trying to learn as much as possible about the homeless population in the city. While the government was clearly not doing a lot to help solve this problem, there were a lot of organizations that did do their best to help. Dan compiled a list of all these places and attempted to contact them. He gave them the description of the woman and told her that she had 2 children with her, but almost none of the shelters were able to give him any information. With a city map in hand, Dan embarked on his quest. Each location marked a beacon of hope in his search for the elusive woman. Dan traversed the city streets. He met countless faces, each carrying their own burden, but none held the key to the woman's identity. Despite the lack of solid leads, he felt compelled to continue, driven by an unspoken promise to himself. Dan's search continued as he conversed with street vendors and locals, laced with bits of information about a woman with 2 children. Some had seen her, a fleeting glimpse in the crowded streets. Others merely heard whispers. Dan listened intently, noting every detail, his resolve undiminished. Through his interactions, Dan began to understand the tight-knit community of the homeless, their protective nature, how they looked out for one another in a world that often overlooked them. As dusk settled, Dan ended his day by mapping out the sightings and information he had gathered. His room became a makeshift command center with notes and maps sprayed across any available surface. But Dan's journey took a disheartening turn when a lead he had been following culminated in a falsy sighting. As the day drew to a close, Dan stood under the fading light, a renewed determination settling in his heart. His resolve was unwavering. He would find her no matter how long it took. Dan's mind often wandered back to Iran, the origin of this mysterious connection. There, amidst duty and uncertainty, he had encountered her. Each memory was a mosaic of sights, sounds, and emotions, vivid yet fragmented. Dan began to unravel possible reasons for her journey to the States, his own experiences in Iran. Dan faced the emotional toll of his military service. These scars, unseen yet profound, had shaped his life in ways he was just beginning to understand. Dan's search led him to a secluded area, this hidden part of the city shrouded in quiet and shadows. Dan began a meticulous search. He moved carefully, his eyes scanning for any trace of the woman and her children. Subtle signs hinted at recent habitation, a makeshift shelter, remnants of a small fire pit, and discarded items that seemed to have been used recently. Realizing the importance of this area, Dan decided to wait, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman. He found a discreet spot where he could observe without being seen. There, he finally found the woman and her children, a sight that halted him in his tracks. His heart swelled with a mix of emotions as he took in the scene before him. The years of searching had led to this moment, a poignant realization of his quest. The sight of them, living in such conditions, stirred a profound sense of urgency and compassion within him. The woman's initial reaction was one of hesitation. Recognizing Dan, her eyes filled with a complex blend of recognition and caution. Her protective gaze over her children spoke volumes of her life since they last met. To ease the palpable tension, Dan spoke softly, reminiscing about their shared past in Iran. His words, tinged with nostalgia and regret, seemed to slowly reach her. Their conversation unleashed a flood of emotions. Memories, some sweet, others painful, cascaded between them. Dan grasped the enormity of her struggles and admired her resilience. Her journey from Iran to the States was a testament to her courage. She recounted the obstacles she faced, the constant challenges of navigating a new life in an unfamiliar land, a relentless pursuit of stability and safety for her children. Amidst her story, a startling truth emerged. The woman revealed that her oldest daughter was Dan's child, conceived during their time together in Iran. This revelation hit Dan like a wave, a tumultuous mix of shock, disbelief, and a dawning sense of responsibility. He wrestled with the implications of this truth, the years of unknowing, and the sudden shift in his identity. As the initial shock began to subside, Dan slowly embraced his newfound role as a father. He cautiously began to bond with his daughter. With a newfound sense of purpose, Dan offered immediate assistance to the woman and her children. He dedicated himself to finding them a stable living situation, a sanctuary from the uncertainties of their past. The process of healing was gradual for Dan and the woman. They supported each other through the complexities of their intertwined histories. In this new chapter of their lives, Dan, the woman, and the children began to form a new family dynamic. Together, they were building a life that blended the memories of what was with the dreams of what could be.